Listen carefully. The greatest war you will ever fight will never be seen, but it will decide everything. Not your talent, not your background, not your opportunities. Your mind is the battlefield, and right now something is fighting for control. The question is not if you're in a battle, the question is who is winning inside you. You are not losing in life, you are losing in thought. That is where it begins, that is where it ends. Every failure you see on the outside was first accepted on the inside. You think your problem is money, it is not. You think your problem is people, it is not. You think your problem is timing, it is not. Your problem is belief, because belief is not just something you have, belief is something that has you. And whatever has you controls you. You wake up with thoughts. You walk with thoughts. You act based on thoughts. But here is what no one told you. You do not think what you want. You think what you have allowed. Let that settle. Because if your mind is filled with doubt, you will call it logic. If your mind is filled with fear, you will call it caution. If your mind is filled with limitation, you will call it reality. But it is none of those things. It is programming. And most of it is not yours. You inherited beliefs from parents, from culture, from failure, from pain. And now you are living a life designed by thoughts you never questioned. That is the trap. Because what you believe, you do not argue with. You defend it. Even when that is destroying you, you defend your fear. You defend your doubt. You defend your small thinking. You say, this is just who I am. Number, that is who you were taught to be. And until you separate yourself from your thoughts, you will never win this battle because you are fighting something you think it is you. Let me say it again. You are fighting something you think it is you, but your thoughts are not you. They are suggestions, some from your past, some from your environment, some from your wounds. And you accepted them, repeated them, believed them. Now they speak without your permission. That voice that says you are not enough, you didn't create it. That voice that says you will fail, you didn't invent it, but you kept listening. And what you listen to long enough becomes truth to you. Even if it is a lie, that is how the battle is lost. Not in one moment, but in silent agreement. Agreement with fear, agreement with doubt, agreement with limitation. And here is the danger. Mind does not argue with what it believes. It builds around it. So if you believe you are weak, your mind will find evidence. If you believe you are unlucky, your mind will confirm it. If you believe you cannot win, your mind will make sure you don't. Because belief is not passive. Belief is active. It filters your reality, shapes your decisions, limits your vision. You do not see life as it is. You see life as you believe it is. And that is why two people can stand in the same situation, see completely different outcomes. One sees opportunity. The other sees danger. One moves forward. The other freezes. Same world, different belief. Now here is the question. Who taught you to see the way you see? And more importantly, why did you never challenge it? Because you were never trained to fight in your mind. You were trained to react, to survive, to adapt, but not to dominate your thoughts. And anything you do not dominate will dominate you. That is law. So right now, your mind is not under your control. It is under influence. Influence of past failure, influence of fear, influence of voices that spoke over you before you knew how to speak for yourself. That is why you hesitate. Not because you cannot move, but because your belief says you should not. That is why you delay. Not because you do not want success, but because your belief says you do not deserve it. That is why you shrink. Not because you are small, but because your belief refuses to let you expand. So understand this, the battle is not out there. It is in here. And until you win in your mind, you will keep losing in your life. Because every action you take must pass through belief first. And if belief says no, nothing else matters. You can have skill. You can have an opportunity. You can have potential. But if belief is weak, you will sabotage all of it quietly, consistently, completely. Now here is the shift. You do not need a new life. You need a new belief. Because the moment belief changes, everything begins to move. But that creates another question. If belief is so powerful, then why have you allowed it to stay broken for so long? That answer will change everything you think you know about yourself. Your mind does not obey truth. It obeys focus. That is the secret. That is the trap. Because whatever you focus on, you give power to, not sometimes, not occasionally, always. Focus is not passive. Focus is permission. It tells your mind, this matters. Expand this. So when you focus on fear, fear grows. When you focus on doubt, doubt deepens. When you focus on what is missing, your life begins to feel empty. Not because it is empty, but because your focus made it so. This is why two people can have the same reality, but live in different emotional worlds. One is grateful. The other is frustrated. One is peaceful. The other is anxious. Same life, different focus. Now listen carefully. Your mind is not designed to make you happy. Your mind is designed to make things real. Whatever you repeatedly focus on, your mind will accept as reality, even if it is false. That is why you can imagine failure and feel fear instantly. Nothing happened, no real danger. But your focus created a reality and your body believed it. So what do you think happens when you focus on the wrong things every day? You train your mind to live in a false world, a world of limitation, a world of anxiety, a world where you are always behind. And the worst part, you think that is normal, because you have been focusing like that for years. But here is what you were never taught. Focus is a discipline. It is not automatic. It is not random. It is trained. And if you do not train your focus, the world will train it for you through distractions, through noise, through comparison. You scroll, you compare, you feel less. Not because you are less, but because your focus was hijacked. Every time you give attention, you give energy, and energy creates experience. So if your energy is scattered, your life will feel scattered. If your energy is weak, your results will be weak. If your energy is controlled, everything begins to align. Now here is the uncomfortable truth. You are not overwhelmed because life is too much. You are overwhelmed because your focus is undisciplined. You are everywhere except where you need to be, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, comparing with others, but never fully present where your power exists, because power is always in the now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, now. But you cannot access that power if your focus is divided. And a divided mind can never win. Let me say that again. A divided mind can never win, because focus creates direction, and direction creates momentum, and momentum creates results. So if your focus is inconsistent, your results will be unpredictable. One day you feel strong, next day you feel lost. One day you believe, next day you doubt. Why? Because your focus keeps shifting. You are not anchored, and anything that is not anchored will drift. Now ask yourself, what have you been focusing on? Problems or possibilities? Fear or faith? Limits or growth? Because whatever your answer is, that is the direction your life is moving. Whether you realize it or not, focus is silent. It does not announce itself, but it is always working, always shaping, always building. So if your life feels off, do not blame your circumstances. Check your focus, because your focus is the gatekeeper of your mind, and whatever passes through that gate becomes your experience. Now here is where it becomes dangerous. Your mind will protect whatever you focus on, even if it is harming you. So if you focus on your weaknesses, your mind will defend them. If you focus on your fears, your mind will justify them. If you focus on your limitations, your mind will reinforce them. That is how people stay stuck without even realizing it. They are not trapped by life. They are trapped by focus. And until you take control of your focus, you will never take control of your life, because focus is the steering wheel. And right now, you are not driving. You are being driven by distractions, by emotions, by unconscious habits. But the moment you decide to focus with intention, everything changes, clarity increases, energy rises, confidence builds, because now your mind has direction, now your mind has order. Now your mind is working for you, not against you. Question, if focus is so powerful, why is it so hard to control? Why does the mind resist discipline? Why does it keep pulling you back to the same patterns That answer is where the real battle begins. Your mind resists discipline because it is addicted to comfort, not physical comfort, mental comfort, familiar thoughts, predictable emotions, repeated patterns, even if they are destroying you. Let that hit you. Because what you call struggle is often just withdrawal from old thinking, withdrawal from old identity, withdrawal from a version of you that feels safe but small, safe but stuck, safe but powerless. And your mind will fight to keep that safety. It will whisper things like, not today, you're too tired, this is too much. Not because it is true, but because it is familiar. And the mind confuses familiar with safe. So when you try to grow, it feels wrong. When you try to change, it feels uncomfortable. When you try to discipline your focus, it feels unnatural. But here is the truth. It is not unnatural. It is just new. And anything new feels like a threat to the old mind, because the old mind was built on repetition. Years of thinking the same way, reacting the same way, believing the same limitations. So when you try to break that pattern, your mind pushes back, not because you are weak, but because the pattern is strong. And patterns do not break with intention. They break with discipline, consistent, unemotional, uncompromising. Discipline. This is where most people fail. They try to change with motivation, but motivation fades. It rises, it falls. It depends on mood. It depends on feeling. But discipline does not ask how you feel. Discipline decides what happens next. Even when you are tired, even when you are distracted, even when your mind is screaming to stop. That is where the battle is won. Not in moments of excitement, but in moments of resistance. When your mind says no, and you say move anyway. When your mind says later, and you say now. When your mind says quit, and you say continue. That is discipline. And discipline is not punishment. It is freedom. Because every time you override your old pattern, you weaken it. Every time you stay focused, you strengthen control. Every time you act with intention, you reclaim power. But here is what makes this battle brutal. Your mind will lie to you, not loudly, not obviously, but subtly. It will make excuses sound reasonable. I need a break. I'll do it tomorrow. This isn't the right time. And you will believe it because it feels true. But feeling is not truth. Let me say that again. Feeling is not truth. Your mind can feel tired and still be capable. Your mind can feel afraid and still be safe. Your mind can feel uncertain and still be able to move forward. But if you obey feeling over discipline, you lose control. Because feelings change, they shift, they fluctuate. But discipline is stable, it is anchored. It does not move with emotion, it moves with decision. And that is what your mind fears. A version of you that cannot be controlled by mood. A version of you that acts regardless of resistance. A version of you that is mentally disciplined. Because once you become that, everything changes. Distractions lose power. Excuses lose strength. Old patterns begin to collapse. And your mind realizes it is no longer in charge. You are. But this is not easy, because the mind will test you again and again and again. It will push you back into comfort, back into distraction, back into old thinking. And every time you must respond the same way, with discipline, not anger, not frustration, just control, calm, consistent, unshaken control. Because this is not a one-time victory. This is daily, moment by moment, choice by choice. You are either reinforcing the old mind or building a new one. There is no neutral, no middle ground, no pause. Every thought is a vote. Every action is a decision. And every decision is shaping who you become. So ask yourself, what have you been choosing? Comfort or growth? Ease or discipline? Familiar or transformation? Because whatever you have been choosing, that is what you have been becoming. Now here is the deeper truth. Discipline is not just about control. It is about identity. Because the moment you begin to act differently, you begin to see yourself differently. And the moment your identity shifts, your behavior follows. But that creates a powerful question. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when it is just you and your mind? Because that version of you is the real you, and that is where the next battle is waiting. You don't act like who you want to be. You act like who you believe you are. That is the hidden code. Identity is not what you say. It is what you accept. You can say you want success, but if you see yourself as average, you will act average. You can say you want discipline, but if you see yourself as inconsistent, you will stay inconsistent. Because identity always wins. Always. Not sometimes. Not when it's convenient. Always. Your mind protects your identity more than it protects your potential. So if your identity is small, your life will stay small. Even if opportunity shows up. Even if doors open. Even if help arrives. You will sabotage it. Quietly. Quickly. Completely. Not because you want to fail, but because success feels unfamiliar. And your mind rejects what feels unfamiliar. So it pulls you back to who do you think you are? This is why change feels hard. You are not just changing actions, you are challenging identity. And identity does not change with words. It changes with proof, repeated proof, consistent proof, unquestionable proof. Let me explain. If you tell yourself, I am disciplined, but you keep quitting, your mind rejects it. If you say, I am focused, but you keep getting distracted, your mind does not believe you. Because your mind listens to action, not intention. So every time you break your word, you weaken your identity. Every time you delay, you confirm inconsistency. Every time you choose comfort, you reinforce weakness. And over time, that becomes your truth. Not because it was real, but because you repeated it. Now listen carefully. Identity is built in silence, not in what you say publicly, but in what you do privately, when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one is correcting you. That is where identity is formed. So if you are lazy in private, no amount of public effort will save you. If you are distracted in silence, no moment of focus will define you, because your default is your identity, and your default shows up under pressure. That is why you break when it gets hard. Because you fall back to who you really believe you are, not who you pretend to be. So the question is not, what do you want? The question is, who do you believe you are? Because that answer controls everything. Your decisions, your habits, reactions, everything. Now here is where it shifts. You do not change your life by chasing results. You change your life by redefining identity and then living like it is already true. Before it is comfortable, before it is easy, before it is natural, you act first. Identity follows. Let me say it again. You act first. Identity follows. You do not wait to feel disciplined, to become disciplined. You do not wait to feel confident, to act confident. You do not wait to believe, to move forward. You move first. You act differently. You think differently. You choose differently. And with every action, you send a signal to your mind. This is who I am now. And at first, your mind will resist it. It will say, this is not you, this is fake, this won't last. But you keep going. You stay consistent. You stay disciplined. And slowly, the resistance weakens. The doubt fades. The new pattern forms. And one day, without even realizing it, you will think differently. You will react differently. You will see yourself differently. That is identity shift. Not loud, not dramatic, but powerful, permanent. Because now, you are no longer forcing discipline. You are living it. And when identity aligns with action, consistency becomes natural. Focus becomes effortless. Belief becomes unshakable. But this creates another tension. If identity is so powerful, why do most people stay stuck in the same version of themselves? Why do they see the truth but never become it? Why do they understand but never transform? That answer is hidden in something even deeper than identity. Most people are not stuck because they lack truth. They are stuck because they avoid confrontation. Confrontation with their thoughts. Confrontation with their habits. Confrontation with their inner excuses. Because the mind will always defend itself, even when it is wrong, even when it is destroying you, even when it is the reason you are not moving forward. The mind will still argue, same. And this is where the real war intensifies. Because now you are not just dealing with belief, not just dealing with focus, not just dealing with identity. You are dealing with resistance. Internal resistance, the silent force that pushes back every time you try to grow. You say, I will change, and resistance says, not today. You say, I will focus, and resistance says, you are tired. You say, I will discipline myself, and resistance says, you deserve rest. And all of it sounds reasonable. That is what makes it dangerous. Resistance never sounds like destruction. It always sounds like protection. But it is not protecting your future. It is protecting your past, your old habits, your old identity, your old comfort zone. Because your mind does not care about your destiny. It cares about familiarity. So anything unfamiliar, even if it is good, feels like danger. That is why growth feels uncomfortable. Not because it is wrong, but because it is new. And your mind interprets new as unsafe. So it builds resistance, quiet resistance, subtle resistance, constant resistance. It does not stop you completely. It slows you down. It delays you. It distracts you. It drains you until you give up without even realizing you gave up. That is how most dreams die. Not in explosion, but in delay. I will try next week. I will get serious soon. And soon never arrives because resistance is patient. It does not need to defeat you quickly. It just needs you to postpone. One delay becomes a habit. One habit becomes a pattern. One pattern becomes a life. And suddenly, years have passed, and you are still thinking about what you were supposed to become. Now listen closely. The strongest people are not those without resistance. They are the ones who move through it. They feel it and still act. They hear it and still proceed. They experience it and still obey discipline over emotion. That is mental strength. Not absence of resistance, but dominance over it. Because resistance will always show up. Every level of growth has resistance. New level of focus, resistance. New level of discipline, resistance. New level of identity, resistance. Every upgrade triggers opposition. So the question is not, how do I remove resistance? The question is, can I move with it present? Because if you wait for resistance to disappear, you will never move. It does not disappear. It weakens only when ignored. Every time you act anyway, resistance loses authority. Every time you follow discipline anyway, resistance loses power. Every time you choose truth over comfort, resistance loses control. And slowly, it stops leading your decisions. But here is the deeper truth. Resistance is not just mental. It is emotional. It attaches to fear. It attaches to uncertainty. It attaches to the unknown. So when you try to change, it triggers emotional discomfort. That discomfort is not a sign to stop. It is a signal that you are breaking pattern. But most people misread it. They think discomfort means danger, so they retreat. But in reality, discomfort means transformation. You are stepping outside identity, outside belief, outside conditioning, and your mind is reacting, not to harm you, but to pull you back. So every time you feel resistance, you are standing at a threshold. One side is comfort, the other side is growth, and you must choose, not once, but repeatedly, because resistance returns daily. It tests consistency, it tests identity, it tests focus. It asks silently, will you still obey discipline today? And your answer determines everything. Now here is the shift that changes everything. You stop negotiating with resistance. You stop explaining. You stop arguing. You stop debating. You simply act. Because the moment you enter negotiation, you have already lost authority. Authority in your mind is not spoken. It is demonstrated. And every time you act without waiting for permission from emotion, you reclaim authority over fear, over doubt, over hesitation. And over time, something powerful happens. Resistance weakens its voice. Not because it disappears, but because it is no longer obeyed. And when resistance is no longer obeyed, a new force rises inside you, a deeper force, a quieter force, a stronger force. But that force is not random. It is built through repetition. And repetition leads you into something most people never master. The system behind transformation itself. Transformation is not the moment. It is a system. And if your system is broken, your life will always return to the same place, no matter how hard you try, no matter how motivated you feel, no matter how many times you start again. Because systems always win over emotion, always. Emotion is temporary. System is permanent. Emotion pushes you for a day. System carries you for a lifetime. And this is where most people fail without realizing it. They try to change their life without changing their system. They rely on inspiration. They rely on pressure. They rely on crisis. But crisis is not a strategy. Pain is not a system. And motivation is not a foundation. So they start strong and collapse quietly because nothing was built to last. Now listen closely. Your life right now is not a reflection of your desires. It is a reflection of your system, your daily thinking, your daily focus, your daily discipline. That is your system, not your dreams, not your intentions, not your potential, your system. And if your system produces distraction, your life will feel scattered. If your system produces inconsistency, your life will feel unstable. If your system produces avoidance, your life will feel stuck. Not because you are broken, but because your system is untrained. And systems are not fixed by hope. They are fixed by design. You must design your mind. You must design your focus. You must design your discipline. Because right now, if you do not design it, the world will. Social media will design it. Fear will design it. Comfort will design it. And they do not design for your growth. They design for your attention. And attention without direction becomes destruction. That is why your mind feels busy, but your life feels slow. You are consuming more, but becoming less. Information is increasing, but clarity is decreasing. Because there is no system controlling intake, no system controlling focus, no system controlling thought. So everything enters. Nothing is filtered. Nothing is structured. Then the mind becomes noise. But a disciplined mind is not noisy. It is structured. It filters thoughts. It prioritizes focus. It eliminates distraction. Not emotionally, but systematically. Now here is the shift. Discipline is not trying harder. It is building structure. Structure around your time. Structure around your thoughts. Structure around your attention. Because without structure, even strong people collapse. But with structure, even weak moments become manageable. So ask yourself, system are you running? A system of reaction or a system of intention? Do you wake up and decide your focus, or does your environment decide it for you? Do you control your inputs, or are you consumed by them? Because whatever enters your mind daily is programming your output, and your output becomes your life. So if you want a different life, you do not start with more effort. You start with a new system, a system of mental discipline, a system of focused attention, a system of intentional thinking. And that system must be protected because the world will try to break it through distraction, through urgency, through emotional pressure. But you must stay anchored, not reactive, not scattered, not emotional, structured. Now listen carefully. The strongest minds are not the most talented. They are the most structured. They know when to think, when to act, when to stop. They do not waste mental energy on everything. They assign focus like currency because they understand this is life. Where attention goes, life follows. So if your attention is broken, your life will be broken. If your attention is scattered, your life will be scattered. But if your attention is controlled, your life becomes controlled. And control leads to clarity. Clarity leads to action. Action leads to results. But results do not begin with action. They begin with system. And now you are standing at a critical realization. You cannot win the battle in your mind without building a system that wins. That for you daily. Because willpower will fail. Emotion will change. But systems will remain. And when your system is stronger than your resistance, you become unstoppable. But there is still one final layer. One deeper level of the battle. Where belief, focus, identity, resistance, and system all collide into one final test. And that is where most people either break or finally awaken. This is where everything you have heard stops being information and becomes confrontation. Because at this level, you are no longer dealing with thoughts. You are dealing with ownership. Who owns your mind right now? Not in theory, not in belief, in practice. Because every thought that enters your mind either gets approved or rejected. And most people are not approving anything. They are just receiving. They are reacting, absorbing, repeating, but never governing. That is the final separation between those who transform and those who stay the same. Governance, the ability to sit inside your own mind and decide what stays and what leaves, what grows and what dies, what leads and what is silenced. But if you have never trained this, your mind feels like noise. Thoughts appear without permission. Emotions rise without warning. Memories replay without control. And you call it personality. But it is not personality. It is unmanaged consciousness. Now listen carefully. The deepest battle is not between you and life. It is between you and your own awareness. There is a part of you that watches your thoughts, and a part of you that becomes them. Most people live as the thoughts. Very few learn to observe them, and that is the shift. The observer changes everything, because the moment you observe a thought, you are no longer controlled by it. You are above it. You are not, I am fear. You are, I am noticing fear. You are not, I am failure. You are, I am noticing a fear of failure. That space, that separation is power. Observe, you can no longer be trapped by. But here is the challenge. Most people never create that space. They merge completely. Thought becomes identity. Emotion becomes truth. Impulse becomes action. And they live inside reaction, thinking it is life. But life is not reaction. Life is direction. And direction requires authority, inner authority. The ability to pause the noise and choose the response, not the first thought, not the loudest emotion, but the correct direction. That is mental maturity, and it is rare because it requires something most people avoid: silence, not external silence, internal silence, the kind where your mind stops running you and starts listening to you. In that silence, you see everything, your patterns, your triggers, your weaknesses, your loops, and most people run from that moment. Because awareness without discipline feels uncomfortable, but awareness with discipline creates freedom. Now understand this, you are not your thoughts. You are the one who responds to them. And every response you make strengthens either control or chaos. There is no neutral. So when a negative thought appears and you accept it, you train acceptance. When a fearful thought appears and you obey it, you train fear. When a disciplined thought appears and you act on it, you train strength. You are always training something, every moment, even now. So the question is not, do I have thoughts? The question is, what am I training with my thoughts? Because training becomes identity, and identity becomes life. Now here is the final revelation. The battle in your mind is not meant to be avoided. It is meant to be governed, not suppressed, not ignored. Not escaped, governed, like a leader governs a nation, like a commander governs a system, like an architect governs a structure. You do not remove thoughts, you lead them. You do not fear the mind, you train it. And when you finally take that position, something shifts permanently. Fear loses authority, doubt loses structure, distraction loses access. Because now you are not inside the chaos, you are above it. And from above, you decide everything. Your focus, your discipline, your direction, not randomly, not emotionally, but intentionally. This is the awakening. Not that you have thoughts, but that you are responsible for how long they live inside you. And once you accept that responsibility, the battle is no longer equal. Because now you are not fighting your mind, you are leading it. And a mind that is led can no longer dominate you, only serve you. But this moment demands a decision. Will you remain a participant in your thoughts, or will you become the authority over them? Because that answer ends the war and begins your transformation. The battle in your mind is not your enemy. It is your training ground. And how you respond to it determines everything, not someday, now. You are either building mental discipline or reinforcing mental chaos. There is no middle. And now you know the truth. You were never losing because life was stronger than you. You were losing because your mind was ungoverned. And the moment you govern it, everything changes. This is the battle no one can fight for you. This is the discipline no one can install in you. This is the authority you must take for yourself. And once you take it, you never lose it again. You do not win this battle once, you win it daily. in silence. In choice, in discipline, no one applauds. Every time you choose control over chaos, you don't just change your thoughts, you change your life.